Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, we review the week. What some of the issues we'll be looking at. The integrity of Parliament under threat. It has in mind that some MPs have been signing for sitting allowances and then dodging the plenary session. For instance, on Tuesday, about 247 MPs, out of a total of 375, signed the attendance register, but less than 30 were in the debating hall. Now, the Speaker rang the bill for 15 minutes. More MP came in, but there was no quorum. We'll talk about what that means. Are they being dishonest? We talk about the threat to push for secession in the north. Some northern Uganda MPs are collecting signatures to back their plan to push for secession so that our region can become a different country. We'll talk about that. The shameful pension scandal, 104 billion shillings. This is a new one, not the one you've heard about probably. And if the detectives say they are investigating the matter, we'll talk about that. Is there no end to this? We'll talk about the poll in Kenya. Will it be peaceful? Will it be not? And who you think might be the winner on March? The further guests tonight, Mr. Charles Rwomushana, former head of political intelligence at State House. You're most welcome, Charles Rwomushana.
The Almighty God is great.
Honorable Charles Rwomushana. Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal consultant and also a pundit on political and social affairs. You're most welcome, Mr. Opiyo.
Thank you very much, Edmond. Good evening to my fellow panelists and good evening to all the listeners.
And Dr. Arthur Bainomcha, Director of Research at AKIJUL, also head of the Peace and Conflict, Lecturer of Peace and Conflict Studies at Makere. You're most welcome, Dr. Arthur.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners and viewers and my fellow panelists.
Charles, when we hear about MPs signing the book and then vanishing or going away, are they acting dishonorably?
The way this parliament is designed, ever since because for us, when we were in the Constituent Assembly, we directed that the constituencies be represented and should be counties, of course, plus a few municipalities, and then these are the interest groups. But things have since changed. There is a bit of fraud that takes place where you create districts to create more seats, where you create now counties like Kagago now is a district, so by necessity it means it must have a member of parliament. So already there is fraud, and then you have a huge group of people, majority of them not fairly educated, because you know the requirement is senior 6 and or its equivalent. Now, so look at the mechanism of decision making. How do you arrive at a decision? First and foremost, the method of bringing them is Kayora. When they are going in the villages to get votes, now it's no longer issues, it's no longer integrity. It's purchase against the law, and they do it. They do it well knowing it's against the law. And that's why you have now a lot of petitions succeeding. Others even forge documents. You get it? Forge documents, they present documents well knowing they are forged. And they even forge them. Then if you carry out a survey when they are looking for votes, more than 50% lie. I will bring you heaven, I will bring you this, I will even go and bring you more beautiful girls for your children. A lot of lies. So you construct a group based on lies, you construct a group based on deceit, you construct a group based on corruption. And then you say, when they have now finally met to share the national cake, then they will have integrity. Of course, you will be deceiving yourself. So, this group, therefore, is constructed to steal. It's not constructed to build. If you believe that, then you are deceiving yourself. But they help. Otherwise, there would be it would be confusion if all of them were to meet in that house. Even the few decisions that they are making, they wouldn't make them.
You are better with a small.
Yeah, you are better off. Let the other group that is full of deceit, that is not very serious, come, sign, steal the money. That's what brought them anyway, and then go to town for their girls, for their business, for their drinking, and it is, and then leave a small group that is ready to do business, than to come and overconge against that group and sit there. Because even many of them don't know parliamentary procedure, they don't even know the rules. If you are now to give them an exam about the rules of procedure, many of them would fail. So it's better that you now have a small group. Even this group that now normally meets is too big. It's a sieving mechanism. Give them freedom so they sign, and then you have a small group that is ready to do business, sit and do business.
Radical views. Dr. Arthur, put some perspective to this for us.
Thank you very much, Edmond. And of course, Rwomushana is talking with a passion and disappointment. It is really very ironical that the parliament, the ninth parliament that has been hailed really in the recent past for its strong stance on asserting the integrity of parliament, the independence of parliament, how they have been actually debating the bills that actually they can sink, they can sow in this kind of corruption. But I think Charles
corruption.
Yeah, it is corruption, of course. What we see is political corruption, and I think Rwomushana has also pointed at important points that we can look at. First is the process that brings these MPs to parliament. I think it's a corrupt process, most because of the monetization of our elections. It's people who have a lot of money. It's people who can tell big lies that actually come to parliament. And you also realize that actually after parliamentary elections, there are so many petitions about on election rigging. So yeah, and qualifications, falsification of qualifications. And I think we need to revisit our electoral system, our electoral rules, so that actually it can sieve out the court of the people. But it also tallies with the value system in this country. I think Uganda has become a country without values. And integrity. There is no integrity. So even the people. Just no. Let me urge this one.
Yes.
So I think people are not putting high qualifications and high values of integrity, honesty, integrity, truthfulness. They are lacking, and that's why actually if you are a thief, if you get a job, if a young man gets a job and within 2, 3, 4 months has a car, is hailed in the village. If you worked for a long time and you haven't built, you are not driving, people think you are lazy, but because you've been working and you have integrity. But so the value system in our society produces this kind of leadership, and therefore we need a paradigm shift, focus massive civic education to change our people around, change the leadership around. But also, I think time has come for Parliament to impose discipline. I think it calls into question the leadership in Parliament.
Can the leadership in Parliament?
Yes.
Can I give you this information? Can I give him this information? There is Justice Odell. I don't know whether you Arthur Odell.
Yes.
He was a very principled judge in the Supreme Court, and the reason why he couldn't lie in the state in that Parliament was because he was independent, because he was honest, because he was straight. When they brought his body, they had to chase it.
Because he had not stood with them.
No, because he had integrity, he was independent, he was straightforward. So that shows you what kind of parliament. The two were not compatible.
Exactly. And of course, Rwomushana also talked about the whole point of the size of parliament. It looks like a mobocracy. It looks a mobocracy when there are too many. Because I want to link this with the discipline in parliament. Of course, the leadership in the parliament, I think this brings into question their capacity to run a disciplined parliament, which would give us quality legislation, representation, the roles of parliament. And so what is talking about 375 members of parliament in a parliament that was constructed to accommodate 80 MPs. You see, it's like herding these guys into parliament. So also the size of parliament, I think, has an implication on the quality of debate, of work there. So actually most MPs, I'm told, for a long time, not only the 9th parliament, never attend the sessions, but they just come and sign because they must earn the money and go to their business, shopping and running their shops around. So I think we must now begin to think about, of course, the value system for this country. We must deal with corruption, and actually I can bring in the Christian angle. I think this country is going to be punished. God will punish this country.
But the church is
because now we seem to have no place We have no place where we can go to appeal. Because you see, Parliament, government has three arms of government: judiciary, Parliament, and executive. For me, really, as a political science scholar, as a pro-democracy scholar, for me, the Parliament is the most important institution, because these members of Parliament are elected. Because you see, no one elects the judiciary, so you can question about their legitimacy a bit. Of course, the president is elected, but he's one. But you know, they represent all these 360 something constituencies. So I think for me, this is where we should go as citizens if we are grooved in the judiciary, in the executive. Now, if the very fountain also of honor is corrupt to this, then where do we go? And I think time has come for this country to re-examine the conscience of this country and reflect, or if we don't, then we are headed for disaster.
Of course, we had a discussion on that topic earlier this week, yesterday, and the MPs were saying that sometimes they are in their office, they can't sit in there and contribute. All of them cannot do that. So they go and sit in their offices, they're doing something else, but they're also following for proceedings. And if they really need to contribute, they only need to
go in the canteen, not the offices.
Nicholas, what's your view there?
You see, anybody who invokes the Almighty scares me to death. You know,
Go on.
Mugabe just did that on his birthday. Certain MP from certain districts in some county in Ntungamo says he was brought upon us by the Almighty God. They do scare me a lot. That is, one, speaks of despair, two, of outright fanaticism. But that's besides the point. With all due respect to my Christian and Muslim brothers,
I
came back to this town a few days ago, and the news that hit me was an outrageous award by the Register of the Constitutional Court of 13 billion shillings in court costs for a case that had 4 issues, 2 of which were considered by the Attorney General and 2 which were won by the Attorney General, and the petitioners were awarded 13 billion shillings in cost. That amount of money is by no means a fair reflection of what should have been paid out. You know, everybody's outraged, all lawyers are outraged about it. I think the Register of the Court might want to explain himself. But besides that, how did we arrive at that point? Okay? We got to that point where we now even have to question the Register of the Court and his decision because of the reckless behavior of our members of Parliament. The quality of our legislation, the quality of our debate in Parliament is embarrassing, to say the least. I just came up here reading a report, the Dura Cement. The Dura Cement report, to those who are fighting corruption, the chorus sounds like a very good report, people must be held to account. But that report is tainted with illegalities and constitutionality, that another 13 billion shillings actually might be paid to people who are being wronged. The 8th Parliament approved the payment of Dura Cement pursuant to a court order. The Prime Minister, who was by then the Minister of State for Security, addressed Parliament and said, this is a payment for a court order, we can't do anything about it. Parliament approved the said payment pursuant to a court order. The 9th Parliament opens up this debate, begins to investigate something that was decided by court, condemns the High Court, condemns individuals, condemns lawyers for representing their clients. Completely unconstitutional, completely irregular. This report makes it to the floor of the House because of the chorus. It is passed as a report of Parliament. The reckless behavior of members of Parliament is going to cost this country dear in terms of money. Severino is smiling away because MPs of their conduct in the oil debate. Now, that point added together with the conduct of not signing or signing and leaving, of their conduct in committees. To be honest, it is parliamentary dictatorship, parliamentary autocracy, in pure disregard of the rule of law, constitutionalism, and procedures required under the law. It is therefore little wonder that members of Parliament behave the way they do, sign up and go away. But the problem, I think, is even bigger than members of Parliament. I don't blame people in this country for whatever MPs do. You can't blame the people. Not every Ugandan is stupid. I think it is wrong to blame Ugandans for the quality of their MPs. I think the overall point that Charles made, and I agree with it, is the overall system of sieving out leadership. But it is never about representation. It's about personal interest. And I made this prediction on this show that the 9th parliament is full of people who stole elections. The 10th parliament might be full of people who stole money, corrupt people, and then this country is doomed.
But there is only one defense for them again. If the decisions are made in the caucus and the Chankwans, and your work is only to come and pass, if there is enough numbers to pass, then why should you go there?
You see, that speaks to quality of the debate.
I have a small disagreement, a slight disagreement, and this I still emphasize that the parliament for me is the most important arm of government, and it's unfortunate, of course, if the three arms of government begin, of course, to undermine each other instead of course, they are supposed to check each other, but actually to govern this country. But in this case, of course, I think
Parliament doesn't check the
judiciary. Does not check the judiciary.
I think I think time has come to check judiciary, because judiciary as it stands now.
So judiciary.
Wait.
Don't speak.
Wait. As
it's about what ought to be, but
what ought to be done, because a lot of corruption going on in judiciary. What should we do? Because you see, people sitting in judiciary connive and make government lose all the cases that actually have been brought against government. They arrest, and people sit and award themselves a lot of money and share it in the bags. So now I want to ask my brother. I know you, a person of integrity. We are saying if judiciary is not also corrupt, if judiciary is corrupt, we should bring judiciary to order.
No, discussing judicial.
There is no judiciary
alongside parliamentary misconduct.
Yes.
For me, it's the
much fixing.
Yes.
I do agree. The judiciary has its own problems. The Law Society has moved the resolution before Parliament.
Which Law Society? You buy the exams in LODC.
Go on.
I appreciate the chance to make my point.
Go on, Nicholas.
Thank you very much. We have moved the petition in Parliament and said, look, guys, our judiciary has problems. We want a commission of inquiry. That petition is lying. Lawyers admit there's a problem in the judiciary. But discussing the judiciary alongside parliamentary, in discipline, for me, is diversion.
Could be obstructed.
It is. The point is this. If Parliament acted lawfully, constitutionally, okay, we wouldn't even get to a point where you begin to question judicial decisions. I give you the recommendations of that committee.
Yes.
The committee recommends disciplining a High Court judge, Justice Billy Kanimura. The committee recommends a disbarment of a law firm and lawyers from practice.
Yes.
It is outside the ambit of their powers. Completely not. Parliament cannot check the judiciary, doesn't discipline the judiciary.
They recommended.
Sorry?
The issue is recommending.
Yeah, but those recommendations are in vain. They are in vain. If you have problems with the judiciary.
If you have problems with the judiciary.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's the floor.
The Judicial Service Commission has the mandate to discipline the judiciary. If you have complaints about the judicial officer, the Service Commission.
But what if it has
if you want to
problems
deal with the
itself?
lawyers, then you have to go to the law council.
Yes, but you see, any citizen of the Republic of Uganda has a right to petition the organs that discipline the judiciary.
Yes.
And therefore Parliament can even collectively represent the citizens of Uganda complain. So if they recommend, it's up to the organs that discipline the judges and the judiciary to take action. But that subsides the point. The state of the judiciary now is literally it's not there. Because I can comfortably tell you that a politician will call the quorum of the Constitutional Court on phone and dictate a judgment, and that will be the judgment. That's how far they have collapsed. And if you want, I can face them. Two, I myself led an investigation and discovered two things. We found two things. One, that they were eating money for bail. Remember that time when they were collecting money for bail and these other costs. By the
time, because we are the ones who led the system changing to paying through the banks. They were sharing it. Two, they would even convict prisoners and they wouldn't reach reserve. Halfway the way to the zero you pay and you go home. That's how the lower judicial and the magistrate level had reached. The only area that has some bit of integrity is the High Court, and it's also now collapsing because of the cadre judges. Court of Appeal, forget about it. The Supreme Court is disabled because now it can't even handle constitutional petitions because it's not. And you know the reason? So is because they haven't picked, they haven't located or identified the cadre judges who can write the judgments of some of the. We don't want to mention names on this radio of the Court of Appeal. You know, those who even write that the president is over and above the law. In the case of Tumukunde, you go and read.
I agree with you. There are fundamental problems in the judiciary. As a practicing advocate, I do admit that. But I also think that there are men of honor and integrity on the bench. Some of the most progressive decisions in our country has come from those courts. And you've got to acknowledge that. But I think that to discuss the judiciary is besides the point. The matter before us, I think, in my view, is about MPs and how we get to have this kind of parliament. And you see, I think the media, that we have been so quick to sing praises of this parliament because of the grandstanding of its people.
We are disparate.
They actually do address the press more than they do discuss it on the floor of the house. Okay, so we are quick to pick up, the speaker's lofty pronouncements, playing to the gallery, and then we praise this parliament. But in terms of actual parliamentary duty, put a finger to it.
But that could point to a despondency.
First, you have parliamentary committees discussing report outside the constitutional time frame. Article 163 clause 4 provides that all reports from Auditor General must be discussed in 60 days, within 60 days. All these reports are being discussed outside 60 days. Long after. Look at the number of
following the constitution.
Look at the acts of parliament. I mean, how many acts of parliament have been passed? How many bills are pending for that house? The 9th parliament has hardly passed any bill.
Very few have been passed.
We've spent time politicking, we've spent time, grandstanding, and
who follows the constitution?
What I think is an issue now.
Let's get one clarification. You spoke about the judge being reprimanded by the legislature, but apparently you're referring to his actions when he was still Solicitor General before he became a judge. Would that not make a difference?
You see, the point is this. What they're condemning the judge for, is for paying out money to hire a consultancy firm to evaluate the claims by Dora Cement. But why did he hire a consultancy firm? The government didn't have the capacity. He had a committee that then hired KPMG to do an evaluation.
When was the Solicitor General?
When he was Solicitor General.
Yes.
Now, subsequently, he gets appointed to become a judge. Now, what you do...
But remember, there was a warning that there was a problem with him. He shouldn't have been appointed judge in the first place because they were on notice.
All right, let's have that.
That's besides the point. The thing is, then, if you have that, the place to address that isn't the floor.
How can we round up this point?
Very briefly, yes.
Yeah, to round up this point, I think we cannot discuss the quality of parliament, especially in view of the corruption around this country, without looking at the other arms of government and the whole government.
We'll talk about that another. We'll wait for the business spectrum already, and we'll be back to stay tuned.
Excuse me, what is this 300 shillings on my bill for?
That is for the tinted candles, madam.
And this 100 shillings?
That is for the air conditioning.
And this 200 shillings?
For the blue walls, ma'am.
I can't believe this!
Why pay for what you don't use or ask for? That's why we at Standard Chartered are introducing the Easy Go account, the first current account of its kind that gives you complete control of your banking charges. For more details, visit a Standard Chartered branch or call 0414-340077.
Would you like to leave me a tip, please?
Uganda Communications Commission is currently conducting nationwide mandatory SIM card registration. Register your SIM card in a few easy steps. Visit your telecom operator's customer care center or any other designated registration center and provide your phone number, a copy of a valid ID or any other valid ID with accompanying photographs such as a passport, driver's permit, voter's card, or a letter from your LC. Information on your physical address or residence will also be required. SIM card registration registration protects mobile phone users from incidences of fraud, incitement, terrorism, and hate messages, among others. Please note that SIM card registration is mandatory, and those who fail to register risk having their SIM cards deactivated. The registration deadline is 1st March 2013. All information shall remain confidential. Let's make communication safe. Register your SIM card today.
There are those who sit around waiting for things to happen. But then there are those who make things happen. Take a closer look. While some people follow trends, there are those who set them. While many people dream of what could be, there are those who make their dreams a reality. While some people make a name for themselves, there are those who also leave a legacy. These people have a unique drive that enables them to make things happen. And they all choose a beer that has a unique ingredient, crystal malt, releasing the richer, full flavor that makes Nile Gold Uganda's true premium lager. Nile Gold, beyond the ordinary.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight we're reviewing we've been talking about the integrity of Parliament coming under threat. Members signing and then going away to do other things. Our guests tonight, Dr. Arthur Bainomicha, Director of Research at AKIJUL. He's also a lecturer at Makerere University in lecturing peace and conflict studies. Mr. Charles Rwomushana, former head of political intelligence at State House, and Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, legal consultant and pundit in political and social affairs. You can send a message to 7197. That is, type the word Spectrum, message, question or comment, send to 7197. You might not be able to call in tonight. The North wants to secede. Charles Rwomushana, what name shall we give it?
When we were in CA, there is an old man. We were the CA delegate. No, from Acholi.
Andrew Dimolo?
No, not Adumora. He passed on. Tiberio Kenya. He moved the motion that we should change the name of Uganda. And it had a seconder.
To the Nile Republic or something?
The Nile Republic. Then we asked him that how would you call the citizens of Nile Republic?
What did he say?
Now then we answered again, all of us in chorus, that will be called Nile Patch. So because of that, the motion collapsed. I mean, we made it look fun. But he had a point, and his point was that you name Uganda on the basis of one of the tribes that was in Uganda called Buganda. But if you read the history of, if you've been following events, the history of Uganda, Buganda has been calling for greater autonomy. Actually, they border secession.
Yes.
And there are some Buganda who have, Buganda politicians who have called for secession. And for them, they even attempted it. They attempted it by ordering the government of Obote of the land of Buganda. Now, a few decades later, I think not more than 20 years, you now have consensus from the top politicians of northern Uganda also calling for this. Now, I think what we need now to examine is, because we need to look at how Uganda was formed. It was formed from the various kingdoms, the various tribes and clans then. And there was an arrangement our sisters arrived at on how they would have a president and how they would have a prime minister. They made some bit of arrangement which came under the other federal arrangement before the 1962 independence. Now, how have we managed Uganda vis-a-vis those communities? How have the divisions manifested? Have we done more to unite, or we have done more to divide? Now, if, for instance, you have a law of more than 20 years in western Uganda, name Bushenyi, name Ankore, the way our population is, I don't think our population can even survive for more than 2 years in IDPs. That one I can comfortably tell you. What I saw in northern Uganda,
how do you explain?
What I saw in northern Uganda, if it was happened in Ankore, the way now Bushenyi is,
what would happen? Because
they don't have food, we are heavily congested, and I don't want to describe the population because some of the terms may be derogatory, but it was extremely very pathetic. Then Abazungu, the whites, whom you call imperialists, come and donate money
to help those fellows who have just come out of war, who have come from suffering, the diseases they are having are peculiar diseases, their neighbors here in Busoga are hard hit with poverty and jiggers, then all that money, you eat it. Now, when you eat it, of the whole scheme that ate it, one becomes a whistleblower and is being pampered for that. Actually, even comes in suits, is driven and to come and testify that his junior forged his signature. Then on the other one, you are showing his luxury and it's only one who is on trial. But he was an agent of politicians and the politicians are not touched. Now, when Parker is calling for questioning, those they even give conditions. No, I'm not going to come first to give me the questions. You see,
I wish listeners could see your gestures.
No, I mean, because now we have to look at these things very, very seriously. I don't know what will be the next step. So, are we doing more? How would you be seen to be sensitive? Let them, those who come from Western Uganda, let them look at their own population. How would their population behave if what is being done to these fellows in Northern Uganda was done to their people? How would the people of Bushenyi, how would the people of Chiruhura behave if it was being done that way? So I think there is a very big risk. We need to review ourselves. We need to correct our own act. Otherwise, you can easily create a huge problem. And it's not the first time that has happened. It has happened in Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia is no more. It has happened in Southern Sudan. In Sudan, more than 2 million people died. So there is a possibility that there is a big risk. And I think we need to sit and resolve this through discussion.
Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, of course, Rwomushana has taken it to another level. But I think what we see what we see the MPs trying to do is a desperate attempt to attract the attention of the government because of the failed post-conflict reconstruction programs, or what we call peace building. I think after the war, the guns fell silent because actually the war has not ended. There is negative peace in Northern Uganda.
Negative peace.
Yeah, in a sense that conditions of war still exist. I think the whole program of reconstruction, both by the government of Uganda and the international community, has not been taken seriously. The region has not been regenerated economically, politically, and again, government has not focused on the causes to address the root causes of the conflict. Even if the peace agreement was not signed by Kony and President Museveni, at least the whole peace process had brought out the core issues that underlie the problems in Northern Uganda, including economic and poverty problems, of course, the political exclusion, which actually come from the pre-colonial times and have continued even under all the governments that have ruled this country. So I think what the MPs are trying to do is to call for attention, and except that I would want to advise our brothers and sisters who are leaders in members of parliament from Northern Uganda that issues of secession threaten territorial integrity, and of course they could. There are certain things that you don't.
I think we should not do it.
But let me continue.
You don't think we should do it? We should.
Yeah, I am saying because this is an advocacy issue. We've just concluded a training for advocacy for conservationists and journalists, and the whole point is they are trying to bring a situation to government and other stakeholders to look at the situation and address it. Northern Uganda has not been reconstructed, but I'm saying that the methodology that is being used is serious because the history of this country is that actually people who call for secession, it always leads to bloodshed. And
give us an example.
Of course, the 1966,
yes, one.
When the Buganda question, of course, so and it led to problems that this country is still nursing. So in the final analysis, let me say that first, government must seriously implement that draft peace agreement. It must be implemented in its fullest measure. Addressing the comprehensive causes of conflict, reconciliation, and to build the gaps. Of course, people have been seeing two Ugandas, one relatively developed in the south and one poor. And I think we must bring the northern Uganda to a level where people actually feel they are part of, they are citizens of this country. So the whole corruption in the Opiyo, which has not been followed by seriousness that it deserves, I think needs to be revisited. And again, I think the government also took a wrong stance because they think that it's the economic problems. So PRDP is largely creating opportunities, but there are other serious issues that need to be addressed. And I think the sooner government focuses on that, then we will see these undertones, which in my view is.
Can I ask you this?
From Nicholas.
Can I ask him?
What's the question?
If the road system that is in Karamoja was to be in Ankori, how would the situation be?
Nicholas.
But no, I think these are not comparable things. I don't know what Rwomushana is.
Nicholas.
You guys baffle me. Just a few minutes ago, you were saying MPs are a hopeless lot, and here you are taking them very seriously on this subject. You know, what is the logic?
What is the point?
I mean, you were just saying our MPs are hopeless. The quality of legislation is hopeless, and just 1 minute later,
I think we didn't say. I think we need to qualify what we say.
Yes, I did.
Because there are MPs who are serious in this parliament.
Can I make my point?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The point is this, Edmond. I'm not married, but I've seen couples fight. When a husband is beating a wife, the wife says, "Okay, here I am, kill me."
Yes,
okay?
you're going to die of
So what you are saying is that the wife wants to be killed. You see, the wife wants. They have bigger problems.
They're throwing a tantrum.
What the MPs are doing are throwing tantrums.
Yes.
Because the call for secession, one, is unlawful. It's unconstitutional. It's a matter of international law.
Or it's like calling for a coup.
Somaliland and Agesia have been trying to break away from mainland Somalia for donkey years. They failed to do so, even when they have more serious problems than the North. The MPs are merely throwing tantrums. They're behaving like kids who are annoyed and hungry and say they want food. The real problem is the marginalization of northern Uganda for more than 26 years, ever since President Museveni came into power. That is the point. And I think that's the point we should be discussing, not secession. Secession is one, an impossibility. It just can't happen. That is my view. I think it is just sheer nonsense. It's hopeless. It can't work. We need to build Uganda as a country, but address the question of the people of northern Uganda being marginalized.
There's no constitutional way it can be done.
Absolutely not.
Let's look at the world.
It's a matter of international law.
Yes, international law.
For parts of the country to actually secede.
We just seen happen.
What happened
less than
in
2 years
Sudan
ago.
took over 30 years and involved negotiations between countries and blessings of the African Union and the UN. You just can't wake up and say referendum. First of all, the provisions for referendum do not provide for a referendum on secession.
I don't.
It's not there.
But we can borrow the experience of Ethiopia. First with tribalism. So the late President Zenawi, after they captured power, introduced what they call ethnic federalism, and the constitution federalism, ethnic federalism. Their constitution allows that actually an ethnic group that feels it wants to go away from Ethiopia should do so, and they have provided that in the constitution. But actually, the practicability of it, if you attempted, the central government would immediately actually fight you. So they just put it there, but it has failed to be implemented.
Is there another place we've seen it happen? Maybe
Eritrea left Ethiopia.
But
From the African
I think we are narrowing the debate. If the issue is whether it can happen,
has it happened in another place apart from Africa?
The question is, are there conditions?
Even in Britain there is an attempt. I think Scotland is
what we must ask ourselves, the question is, the question should be, are there conditions that warrant a call for secession? The answer is absolutely no.
In this country.
Period. Discussion closed. Whether it can happen is hypothetical, is theoretical.
Because of the
listeners' time. You just move on to something else.
Just let's move on to something else. The shameful pension scam. 104 billion shillings. A new one this time. Was stolen in 2 years ago. We're just finding out now. Detectives say the new figure is different from another 63 billion been spoken about earlier. They spoke about bank officials being dragged in. Cairo Bank has been mentioned, and other financial scam syndicates. Where are we going on this? Is corruption coming to an end with all this inflation?
I have two major points on this scam in the pensions. Because in the first place, it's not new. Yeah. I came across it as far back as 2004, 2005.
As an investigator or beneficiary?
Investigator, I don't know how to define it. Well, I don't know, it falls under classified business. Because if it falls there, it will create new problems. But I would learn two things.
Yes.
One, that it is extremely very difficult under this system to steal pensions and gratuity money. The way the system is arranged.
What do you mean?
We don't have enough time, so I wouldn't explain it. But you must have, for the file must have an appointment letter. Your mother ministry must confirm. Then there is a photograph which is also signed, endorsed by the bank, endorsed by your mother ministry.
Well, but you're talking about it, a syndicate involving bank officials.
Yeah, but even then the system is so complex that you cannot do it and take more than 100 billion before you are captured.
So this has not happened.
Now, it happened, but I wouldn't want to call it stealing.
What is it?
I know it's fundraising. So it's fundraising. You call here, how many billions do you have there? You bring this, and then now the other one now begin to see how do I do it. So it's a problem.
Like the case of Mukula, who told somebody, there's money here, you come and fix.
I know the Mukula case is also very different because I know the facts surrounding it. So that's point number two. Because if I have letters, I've seen a letter where Honorable Kajura, the head of public service, Mr. Ntara, and struggling hard, sweating. That I don't know when you read the content of the letter, you really see a lot of desperation that Mr. Obe should not be transferred from public service. And interestingly, Mr. Obe is being transferred to gender, which is the same thing with Kazinda. The other alien mama coming in and making a ruling beyond the agenda is not leaving. Then the public service the same thing, and all of them are stealing in billions of money. Now, two, if you want to go to this and this bank, Cairo Bank, there is something very interesting. They will show you money entering on the account. I challenge them to publish the withdrawals on that account. The very day they will publish the withdrawals of that account, there will be a rupture and Jesus Christ will come back.
But I think Rwomushana is the expert on that, I must confess, but my own take on it is that what we need to do is to strengthen the police capacity, especially the CID, strengthen our investigative capacity, train them, because actually these are new realities because of the computer era. So people are able to manipulate. These are cyber crimes, and I think our
cyber crimes.
They manipulate the computer, and I'm telling you. So what I'm thinking, and actually I've spoken to someone who says actually our capacity of the police and other
this is probably not cyber crime.
What is cyber crime?
Cyber crime refers to something that's used on the internet.
But you see, this connivance still actually it is because of the wire.
You see, maybe you may not be aware of the case. Your name goes there, the money comes in your name, then you are required to write a letter directing the bank that the money be put on the other person's account. But so the account is run by billions of money. Now the same police, I challenge the General Kibura, let him publish from his investigations the way the money was withdrawn from that account.
Let's try to look very briefly, Charles, about the logistics of it. You imagine the Ministry of Public Service. It's a government office that good people and the people who are probably undertaking these scams. Is it possible for it to be done in a normal working environment to avoid this kind of scam? Or do you envisage a room kind of where
as a President District Commissioner, I have picked gratuity from public service. Even when you have authentic documents,
it's difficult.
It's next to hell. So let's look at I have a court order entitling me to salary arrears. I even had a letter of the President of the Republic.
That wasn't that easy.
But it took me 6 months
to
follow it up. You get? And yet I know them. So let's look at this. So it is almost impossible that you can see and steer to this level undetected.
Let's look at this. Assuming it actually happened, we assume it happened. Do you think they can do it in a normal work environment?
You see, it's
doing something that nobody doesn't know, or do you think there are some people
it's
a cold room, a strong room,
the protector of the money in the ministry is the minister, is the permanent secretary, and the other accountants.
Let's move on.
Now, somebody goes with sacks and picks what is protected. It's like you going in the fridge and you steal milk, you take your milk, well knowing the milk is for the kid.
Nicholas.
Now, you call it, how do you call it what?
Nicholas.
So we are just thinking what they put. You
see, Edmond, I read in detail the Auditor General's report. The Auditor General and government agreed to a framework of value for money audit. You know, because of lack of capacity, they were doing it in phases. So when the time came to do the Prime Minister's office, the Assistant Auditor General made countless requests for information, and she was denied. Every time she wrote asking for information, the PS, the Bigirimana, would tell her, my accountant is in Nairobi, he's out of the country, he's sick, his wife is sick, he's lost someone. And this went on for a period of over 8 months, until it got to a point in which the Auditor General himself invoked his power to access information in a letter to the PS. Now, what then happens is the PS doesn't respond to the letter for information documents to allow for value for money audit. What he does, he then becomes a whistleblower and goes to the CID and says, please investigate this. And then he behaves as if he's a whistleblower. He goes to the Auditor General and says, oh, I've discovered scam. So there is a syndicated process of swindling money without necessarily subjecting these processes to a value for money audit. The mistake that we all make and that MPs are making is to jump onto the money stolen without looking at the process of getting to that point.
Yes.
If you look at the process of getting to that point, Bigirimana is not a whistleblower.
What do you think he is?
He concealed information to the Auditor General, even when he invoked his powers under the law to deliver information so that a value for money audit can be done. The same process happened at public service. The World Bank paid money to do a pension payment scheme that is automated. It's online. The reform for that process was delayed for well over 9 months. In the 10th month, these scandals broke out.
Let's move forward. Doctor, after the Kenyan elections, there are allegations by the Raila Odinga camp that the Kenyatta camp is going to have the election rigged in their favor, that they're organizing to disrupt the elections as well. What do you think is likely to happen? Well, first of all, who do you think is going to win, and what are the dynamics before that day, polling day?
I think all the indicators, we see red lights in the case of Kenya, and unfortunately, we wish our neighbors well. We would like to see the region, at least one of our countries, really conduct a peaceful election. And Kenya has achieved a lot, especially in economic development, and certainly any disruption or any violence would certainly destroy a lot of, reverse the amount of development, especially the 4 years under actually Kibaki. They have done a lot. But when you look at the elections, when you look at the flashlights, they are red. And I think I was in Kenya recently, where Kenya, the Ford Foundation, working with us, civil society, gave out they gave out awards to democracy champions. But what I gathered, I realized that the Kenyans are inward looking, and they are not actually, they even don't want to tell the outside world that things that the center cannot hold. So many militias have been formed, gangs, actually each politician has its gangs, and gangs are even rented out certain politicians to do certain dangerous things. So what we see really, it looks to me that actually the international, there's likely to be violence in the Kenyan elections.
Comparable to the previous one.
This is going to be even more worse. It's going to be worse because there is a lot of preparation for violence, and the international community, the government has given a semblance that all is well, and the neighbors, especially within the framework of the international, of the East African community, they seem to be careful. They don't want to interfere in the Kenyan affairs, but yet the breakout, the violence in Kenya will have far-reaching consequences to the region in terms of the economic disruptions, in terms of refugees that may come or displaced people. So I think the region and the international community need to seriously watch Kenya and prevent.
Time is getting very, very thin right now. The Chief Justice in Kenya, the man who has a near hearing? He's been complaining that he's been harassed by
Justice Mutunga.
William Mutunga.
Yes, but I had an opportunity to meet Justice Mutunga. He's been threatened, and I think the fear is that he's very close to Raila Odinga, and if anything happens, it's like him. So, but the point now, the fear is actually judiciary is being intimidated, and yet actually judiciary was the driver of the post-conflict, post-violence reconstruction, and now it's being cowed down.
The judiciary was it
has been a major driver of the post-conflict reconstruction, the hearing process, and now it's being cowed down, and so I don't know who's going to hold. The other day was stopped traveling to Tanzania by my migration officer.
William Mutunga. So he's being harassed.
He's being harassed.
The Chief Justice, Nicholas.
Well, it's easy to sit in Kampala and make analysis of what's happening in Kenya and predict doom. I was in Kenya 2.5 weeks ago.
And Mombasa?
No, I wasn't in Mombasa. I was in Nairobi. And at the time I was there, the only key concern was the Tana River murders. There were murders, tribal ethnic clashes over grazing land, cattle, and stuff like that in the Tana River area. Then there were concerns about the Mombasa Brigade, and the Mungiki. But generally speaking, the amount of effort being invested by Kenyans and the Kenyan authorities in averting violence is impressive. I think, in my view,
including.
Let him continue.
If I could beg the point.
Go on, Nicholas.
So if you look at what is being done against what happened in the past, I think it is difficult to see if there's going to be any violence worse than what we've already seen. I think that the Kenyan election will be relatively less violent than it was before.
But most analysts have spoken to seem to think it's going to be worse this time. It could potentially.
Secondly, there is
same actors are in charge.
Go on.
There is an overall atmosphere of the ICC hanging around, and everybody is just afraid to do what can land them into the same problem.
Some people think
that's
that.
The picture
some people think that if your hands are soiled, if you're lying down, really, you're not afraid of falling. So if you have an indictment under your head, you have very little to lose. Anyhow, just very briefly.
Now I saw President Mike swearing. I don't know how I could describe. Have you moved around Room Street here and you see how pickpocketers behave?
Go on.
When you see that, I don't know the word that I can use to explain it. But, it's a neighboring country. It's a neighboring country, and the other one is the head of state. So I needed to be a little bit more diplomatic. But it was extremely terrible. It was scandalous. Now, then you have the chairperson of the Electoral Commission saying, I don't know the results. But
ask somebody else.
Two, the time between when they announced the results and when he was sworn in, presuppose that there was no traffic jam. It appeared that the Chief Justice had already dressed before even the swearing in. So, and it's the same system that is in place, and its duty is to install. And it's the same president, because it was done by the security apparatus, not the Electoral Commission. So the guarantor of the election result in Kenya is not the Electoral Commission; it is the security apparatus, and it is still intact. It is still intact, and it is prepared to have the son of Jamaica become president. So that is still done.
We have to go.
The rest of God knows.
But thank you. So what should the countries do? I think countries in the
Let's talk about Nomisha saying stock up on food. Director of Research and Lecturer Makere is a man of peace. Thank you for coming to Spectrum tonight. Mr. Charles Rwomushana, former head of political intelligence at State House. Thank you for coming tonight. Mr. Nicholas Opiyo, pundit on political and social affairs, also and legal consultant. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host Edmond. Kizito. Spectrum will be back on Monday. Have a blessed week.